This episode is powered by Act Now Education. Go to www.actnoweducation.com for free comprehensive educational resources and opportunities for active duty, veterans, military spouses, and children.
The transition was rough. It was rough. You didn't think. I went. I had a new job. I was going in customers' homes, getting disrespected. I'm like, what the hell's going on? Like, this isn't the world I'm used to.
Warriors fall in. It's time for formation. Today I'm joined with a fellow Brazilian Jiu Jitsu practitioner who also served in the United States Marine Corps, and just like me, today's guest spent some time in combat while in Iraq. Today's guest now owns his own gym outside of Chicago in Elmhurst, Illinois. Over time, he's been involved with BJJ, also known as Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. Our guest today also secured mixed martial art victories with a record of 7-0. I had the opportunity to know and train with our guest when I also trained Brazilian Jiu Jitsu in Chicago at the Uflacker Academy, when he was just a purple belt looking to climb the ranks and make a name for himself. So I'm very proud to have Professor Anthony Ferro on today's podcast to talk about his time in the Marine Corps, his combat experiences, and his career transition out of the military, which involved some PTSD. And he also learned how the mixed martial arts community could help him better discover more to life. Professor Ferro, it is an absolute honor to have you on the Morning Formation podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Dude, it's hard to believe that it's been over 10 years since I trained there in Chicago, Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. Time just flies so fast, and I want to give a shout out to Professor Christian Uflacker, because I know he kind of brought you along, right, and helped you.
I've been there ever since. I've been there since oh good Lord, 09. Jeez,
Yeah,
that's a long time. Yeah, that's a long time. I try to stay, he's a good guy. I stay loyal, and yeah, it's been a long 10 years since we trained together. Wow, that's long.
I know, right?
He has a purple belt, and that was awful. Just scrappy. They didn't know anything.
I tell you what, man, I was very impressed with that school, very impressed with the academy, the folks that trained there. I know there was a lot of law enforcement that trained there as well, a lot of military folks that trained there. So it was it still is a very impressive academy. And it's great to see that you had grown your own school as well out there in Elmhurst, Illinois. And I understand you're starting your second school. Is that right?
Yeah, well, it was still my first school, but I moved into my third location. I've been open 4 years,
Wow.
but this is third location already. Just bigger. We've outgrown every gym, and that's a good problem to have, but it's also stress, and you got to move into new places.
Hey, man, yeah, it's growing, and you're actually changing a lot of lives. I think that's incredible, man. So let's get into it, man. Let's talk about, where are you from, Anthony, and why did you decide to join the Marine Corps over all other branches?
So I'm from Alsop, Palos Heights, south suburbs of Chicago. Um, uh, why I went in the Marines instead was because I was going. I wasn't headed in the best direction after I did like a year of college, gave up, and just I didn't really have any hobbies. Jiu-jitsu wasn't around at the time. I loved martial arts. I was taking Hapkido, but that was not nearly the same type of workout and stuff like that. I chose the Marines because I wanted the toughest one. I wanted the hardest one. I wanted to change my whole life around. And I did. I sure did. But I wanted the challenge. I needed a change.
So was the military familiar territory for you and your family, or was you kind of an outlier?
Yeah, nobody that I know of served. I think I had maybe a cousin served a long time ago or something. I don't remember, but no, nobody served. It was very foreign for all of us. It was very different.
Right. So you have a lot of courage, first of all, to just walk into the dark and join the military, having no one else to kind of relate to what you're about to go through. You leave and you go active duty Marines. Where's your first duty station?
Lejeune. That was my only duty station. I train on the West Coast though, and but they shipped me off to East Coast Lejeune the whole time there.
All right. And so, how many years did you do in the Marine Corps? And talk to us about your first deployment in the combat.
I did four active, four inactive, so just eight total that we'd have to do. I went to Iraq in '05 and '06, so 2 years out of the 4 years I've been in. So I was deployed more than I was on base. Um, I was in the fleet for about 5 or 6 months before we shipped out. So we spent a lot of that time training. I was motor T, so I learned as much about trucks as we could and how to drive and stuff like that. But then we went to Iraq in February to September, and our station was in Fallujah. And the war of Fallujah was in I want to say '05, late '04 to '05. So we
Yep.
got there right after the grunts, and everybody just tore that place up. It was very violent. I mean, you could tell when they were leaving. Just we had brand new camis on, and they just looked like. I mean, they lost. You could tell they lost a lot of people, and were tired and just done. But yeah, then we were stuck for Fallujah there for 7 months, and I somehow became the lead machine gunner of the convoys in front of my lieutenant, and it's a lot of crazy stuff. A lot of crazy stuff happened that 7 months, but I got out of there somehow. I got out of there
Yeah.
somehow. So it was a lot. It was 7 months straight of Groundhog Day. You know, you wake up, you do the same exact thing. You don't see clouds in the sky. It's hot, just hot, and that's it. You're just hot for 24 hours for about
Wow.
6 months out of the 7 months. I was just hot.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I feel you, man. I was located up in Mosul, Iraq, in 2004, 2005,
oh
and
wow.
my cousin was one of the Blackwater guys that was actually ambushed and was drugged through the streets. His name's Wesley Batalona. So
Oh,
Fallujah is fairly near and dear to my heart, and some of the things that happened there as well. I was there right around the same time as you. So in convoy, I was a transportation officer. So convoy was something I was very, very familiar with. Now, when you deployed, how old were you, and what rank were you?
I was older. I mean, when I deployed, I was 23. When I went in the Marines, I was 22. So I was kind of older than a lot of the 18-year-olds right after high school. Yeah, I was 20. What did I say? 20, yeah, 23. 23 on my first deployment. So I was a Lance. I got out of boot camp as a PFC because I got the college credits for it because I did not want to be a private after. I wanted to, like, if I was going for this, I knew this was going to be my life or not. It was going to direct me towards my life. You can't mess up in the military. I feel like you gotta. I wanted as much rank as I could get.
Right.
I did that. I did my research before I went in. That's all I did. Um, but yeah, so I was a lance corporal.
Right on.
Um,
That's still fairly young. 23 years old, your first deployment. And how many deployments did you do total?
two, two back to back.
Wow.
We were back home for 3 months, and then we went right back
And the
again.
second time, still Fallujah?
See, this was TQ. I can't pronounce it, but we called it TQ. And then it was really rough. We got sent to Ramadi for a month for like a mission, a secret mission with the army. Um, that was bad. It was Ramadi was not good at that time. I mean, Ramadi was never good, but it was rough at that time. But we were there already. That's all we knew. We didn't know anything else.
Right.
We didn't have time to get used to being home in the civilian world again. We were just right back in the desert, in the sand, doing what
Right.
we did 3 months prior for 7 months. Our attitudes were completely different too. I mean, the second time we were just, you know, we knew it all already. A lot of our lieutenants and stuff, that was their first time over there, and we're like, hey, we know what combat is, like, easy there.
Right.
So we were like, we were belligerent. It's war, or whatever. It was wartime.
Right. And so, did you get an opportunity to talk to anyone that was actually in Iraq in that area before they went in and cleaned out Fallujah?
No.
So I did. Like when I was in Mosul, there was a couple of guys that were from the from 82nd. There were a couple of first lieutenants that were there the year prior to Fallujah getting taken over by us, and they said it was a completely different world back then. They would actually go out into town in soft skin Humvees and make local purchases. And
Oh,
when I was there, same time as you, like there was no way in hell you would go outside the wire without, sandbags on the floor, ghetto metal on the side of your vehicles, or eventually we got the level 3 Tardak stuff,
yeah.
the Oshkosh stuff. But it's pretty wild. I felt like every year that went by, Iraq would change, and it wouldn't be the same as it was the year before. Did you experience the same the second time you went to Iraq?
Oh man. Um, Man, it's hard to even remember. It was just we were in different areas,
Yeah.
but still, like we were still getting more of the same, and if not more, the longer we stayed there. They were sick of us being there.
Right.
Um, so to me, not really, because I think it was just such a quick transition.
Yeah, it was
It
3 months,
was
right?
it was the same. It was 3
Right.
4 months, so it was the same bullshit that it was before. It was, you know,
Yeah.
not the best, not the best times there.
So,
It was ugly a lot of times. But
so you come back from your second deployment and you get out of the Marines shortly thereafter that. What was that transition like? Did you already know what you were going to be doing, like when you uh,
yeah,
got out of the uniform?
yeah. My brother-in-law, luckily, he worked for Comcast Cable Company, and I moved back to Illinois 2 months later at a job interview, and I was hired on spot. So I had that stress. I was like, hell yeah, I got a job. But it was just an awful job, and I was in an awful state of mind without knowing. And I did that awfulness for close to 8 years, and that made my PTSD get really bad. And at the time, I didn't know I had PTSD, or I refused to believe it that I had PTSD.
Yeah.
Um, the transition was rough. It was rough. You didn't think. I went. I had a new job. I was going in customers' homes, getting disrespected. I'm like, what the hell's going on? Like, this isn't the world I'm used to. Um, like, I'm like, do you know where I just been? Like, it's like I don't want to be like that, but at the time, I was like, these people are screaming at me because of a cable line. I'm like, I should have been dead 50 times. Like, are you really complaining about a cable line like this, or? But
Right.
that transition stuff for me was tough.
Yeah. And I can tell you that I don't know if you felt the same way, but when I transitioned out, I just wanted to be left alone. Like I wanted to get out. I wanted to check all the blocks and just not go through any of the out processing stuff at all. And I feel the way that you felt, where I came back from Iraq and I had people who were sitting back here watching TV, telling me what was going on and telling me what it was like. Right? You
Oh,
experienced the same?
that's the best. When they say, what's in Iraq, why you went to Iraq, what's in Iraq.
Right.
I'm like, oh, because you read it online. Okay. I mean, I wasn't there or anything, so what would I know?
Right.
A lot of ignorance, and I wasn't used to it.
Right.
And now it's just times 1,000, but when I got out, but I never realized it. I had a lot of people hate me because I was in the military. I didn't know people actually thought
Yeah.
that stuff or like hated people in the military because they think we're all killers and stuff. I'm like, wow, you just don't know. You don't know anything about anything.
Right. Right. And that's one of the main reasons I started this podcast, was because anytime I ever heard about military veterans or what veterans were doing, I always heard about the drug addict or the alcoholic, or it's not the guys that are out there like you that are building businesses, changing lives. It's always about the negative stuff, man.
Like,
And so I got tired of hearing it. I got tired of hearing it because I know there's a lot of guys out here that are killing it and are making it and are overcoming all the obstacles between these two different cultures of the civilian world versus the military world, right? And so I really appreciate guys like you that are just so courageous, strong, brave. You're out there changing anyone that you've trained over the years, Anthony. You've literally positively changed their life. And having trained jiu-jitsu for the last 11 years or so, man, it's that's how I have felt about it, and I have a lot of respect for what you do specifically. So at what point, though, you took Hapkido back in the
yeah.
day? At what point did you find yourself back on the mats again, and what were you doing?
So I know exactly where I was at. I was getting into, I loved watching UFC, loved watching Pride. That's when Pride was getting huge. My favorite fighter was Chuck Liddell. I would remember watching him in Iraq knock out Bob Ballou, I think twice. I was so involved in it. I'm like, man, I would love to like try something like this. I always wanted to do jujitsu because of Hoist Gracie, though. This was before, this was like in the beginning of the military where I was studying jujitsu, like reading books on the Gracies, but I couldn't afford jujitsu. That's when it just started coming around right before I joined the military. Only school was in like the city, and it was like I couldn't do that. I was young, I didn't have the money. Um, so after my first deployment, again, we didn't have much time to transition, but after the second deployment, I knew my mental health was getting kind of weird. And, we would lift. It didn't matter if we got no sleep. We went to the gym right away to get that anger out. And I was lifting a ton of weight. And that's why I'm probably hurt because I lifted so much heavy weight for being so small. But, that's what we did. That's what all we had to do was fun and recreational. So, with about when we went to Ramadi, like I brought up earlier, when we got stationed out there, they had a gym with mats, and we were with reservists at the time, and we had about 10 reservists in my platoon, which those guys are tricks. But we had a blue belt, which was like the almighty blue belt. That's how stuff changed, right? Like
Right.
this guy was blue belt. He was a god. I'm like, oh my god, you're a blue belt? Like how? So we went to the gym. He started showing us a few arm bars and triangles. And he's like, all right, go grapple with this Marine. And I remember I didn't know what the hell it was. And instantly I get a triangle on the guy. And after that, I freaked out. Like I loved it. I choked somebody out in my legs after learning jujitsu for like 15 minutes because I
Wow.
think just reading all the books helped, having long legs. And the guy that I triangled actually lives in Illinois, and he's a Marine. He lives in Illinois, and he's one of my buddies. That's funny, but he was the first guy that got triangled by me. But yeah, that was in Ramadi, and after that, that was it. When we got back home, signed up at the closest jiu-jitsu, more of an MMA school, and that was the time when Brian Stan was coming up in the WEC.
Hmm.
Uh, he was captain. Um, like I read his book, Marine Captain. He's been through a lot of shit. Um,
Yeah.
you know,
He's a Silver Star recipient, isn't he?
he's been through a lot. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But I saw how he trained, and he would talk to me, as a person because he was a officer. So it's weird to see them outside of work. But he had no one to train with, so you would just see all these big Marines come in there and try to beat this guy up, and he would just knock their heads off. That's how he was training to get in the WEC, and then he got out, and then he went in the UFC after that. But that's where I started, and I was good at kicks. I started doing some stand up, and it just took a long. I've been through so much of getting my butt kicked in the beginning, like and tears because I would just get my ass beat sparring because I never did it something like that before. I got collar choked as the guy was laughing at me as I was getting collar choked. I had a girl choke the shit out of me, unconscious
Oh yeah.
almost.
Oh yeah.
Right? And she was like clapping and shouting. That made it awesome. Um, so yeah, that was my beginning of my jujitsu journey, and I remember going every day. I just had to show up once, and that was it. I went every day, and the longest time from that day that I've taken off jujitsu was probably from my knee surgery last year. I took off probably like 6 weeks straight, possibly. Um, I've had blood clots where I couldn't train for 3 months, but I still did, kind of.
Mm,
And Professor Christian had to drag me off the mats because he's like, "Stop! You're training too hard. If you get hit in the head, blah blah blah."
mm.
Um, I love it. I'm obsessed with it because it's so good for mental health and it's never ending. And
Yeah.
self defense is always the biggest thing, right? I mean, we all should know that, but
Right.
um, it is my mental health,
Right.
and now I just like helping people. Like I love. There's a lot of people that could go far in this sport, and they could do far in their lives. It's just you have to get through it. This sport can take you there. It really can. It's just not easy. It takes dedication.
Yeah. And it's very family oriented, man. I remember when I was training there, and most gyms that I've been to has had that format and that overall environment where you develop a family. And I know it at the Uflacker Academy, and I'm sure it's the same thing at your academy as well, where you literally become a family. You guys
It's
train together, and you fight together, you compete together. So I think that there's a lot to be said about that as well. And I can tell you that personally, I'm the same boat as you, man. Whenever I was in a dark place, I would just find the gym and train, because you have two choices, right? You can go to the bar, you can go to the pubs, or go to the clubs and drink, or you can go find some exercise somewhere and find some camaraderie, which is what we're used to in the military, and you can find that on the mats, man. And so I've been meaning to get you on the show for a while, and I'm really happy that I got you on the show, because a lot of things you're saying I resonate with. I totally understand where you're coming from with that. And I just want to back it up real quick, and talk about some of the failures that you had while you were in uniform. And I think it's important because a lot of folks think that you have to be perfect, to be a success. You have to be perfect. And in my opinion, I've had a lot of failures myself and had to overcome obstacles, and pick myself back up again, dust myself off, and keep going. So would you mind talking about some of those failures that you had and how you found the strength to overcome? And was Brazilian Jiu Jitsu part of that?
I at the end, I don't know if I looked at it as that doing jujitsu about failure because at that time I had maybe 8 months left, and I wasn't thinking of that at the time, but I felt like my whole military career, I failed so many times just from the beginning because I didn't have that experience of knowing anyone that was in the military. I lost my dad early. I had nobody to show me all this manly stuff. I get thrown in the Marine Corps and I'm failing at making a tent. I'm failing at shooting properly. Like I failed a lot of shit.
Yeah,
Um, but all I could do, and I kind of tell people this in jujitsu, I could do is just keep going and try to get better, or I could stop and just quit. But the military doesn't let you do that. I mean, you can. It's just you're not going to get far after that. They'll kick you
right.
out. You'll just be a turd. You know what I mean? But I failed a lot in my attitude. I would say I always had something to say. I always spoke up, which was a good thing, but it was also a bad thing. So I had to work on how I would say stuff, especially coming from the civilian world and how I talk to people. It just so yeah, there's just a lot of failure, a lot of the stuff that I just couldn't do that a lot of these kids were doing. Um, I was like, why can't I do that? I can't even. put that in properly. I just changed his tire wrong. Like, I'm sure people know how to change tires 20 times better than I did when they went in, So I felt like I failed a lot until I hit like corporal, as when I was like, okay, it's time to, I have to take more of a leadership role anyway. I tried to as a lance corporal too, but, so yeah, I failed at adapting at first, but all you can do is keep going.
Yeah.
And that's it. And that's what I did. I kept working on it. And I guess all that failure, to end it good, was doing jujitsu. So I didn't feel like such a failure.
Yeah.
And then going through 2 deployments, I don't know. I don't even know how I felt, like, if you're supposed to feel anything. I'm trying to
Right.
think, like, if I felt like I didn't think I was a failure at that point. But, that's all we kind of knew. I didn't really know anything else at that point. But
Well,
that's how I kind of got over them. Just keep doing them.
yeah. So you lost your dad at a young age. So you grew up sort of having to figure out on your own how to become a man.
Yeah.
And then you joined the Marines, and that's diving into the deep end in itself. I'm sure boot camp was a complete slap in the face for you.
Awful.
And
It was awful.
and yeah, it takes a lot of courage, man. It takes a lot of courage to do what you did, and the things that you're talking about right now are things that have to do with cutting your teeth in life. And I really believe that there's no better place than the military to do that, to cut your teeth and learn, get mentored by others, fail, get back up again. And it's funny because today I was working with a 26-year-old young man, and we were doing push-ups. And even at my age, at 42 years old, I can still do 55 push-ups in like a minute, right?
Right.
Um, and that's just how we are, I think, because and this kid I was working with didn't quite understand like the idea of clearing the bar and like every day get up, like knock out as many push-ups as you can before you go to the restroom. Like that's what I do, and that's what most of us in the military do, right? And I really feel like people who serve get it. Um, you know, overcome the odds, pushing yourself beyond your boundaries, and things like that. And that's something that sounds like definitely you learned how to do, and that's why it was sort of an easy transition for you to get onto the mats and start training and pushing yourself. And you sort of found a family there. And I know you were training with Professor Christian Uflacker for years, but at what point, Anthony, did you decide that it was time to open your own gym?
So after the whole Comcast thing, it was like 7, 8 years in, and I was going through a divorce at the time. I was in school full time. I was working full time, and I was still fighting MMA. So I was doing that. I juggle, and my life was chaotic. I had no time, but I kept myself so busy. I had to. I just had to keep myself busy. Um, because once I stopped being busy, you have all those thoughts coming in, and all of that stuff.
Right.
So at the end of that, I was starting to get out of Comcast. I couldn't take it anymore. I just, and then the PTSD started like overflowing, and I started actually seeing like therapists and stuff like that. So I just was like, I'm done with Comcast. So I got called. Someone I used to know a long time ago that would run gyms, and they're like, "Do you want to be a trainer at like a UFC gym?" I was like, "Hell yeah, it's awesome, UFC gym." And you think of the money and how sad it is, how much money you make, but you have to start. You have to start somewhere. Holy cow! And I had to do something, and I'm
Right.
like, "Well, don't I try this and see how I go?" I mean, I was a brown belt at the time, so I didn't even teach jujitsu there. I was just a kickboxing guy, and I ran it like boot camp, and I killed so many people in good ways. They loved me there because I related so much with, oh, you want to lose weight? I got you. Oh, you want to get in shape? I got you. Trust me. Like, I know how to get your asses in shape, and I was very intense, and I still am to this day. Um, and a lot of it has to do with the military. A lot of the kids do not have the drive that we had. Not at all.
Right.
Um, so once I started, finally started. I asked to teach jujitsu. It was like 6, 7 months, and I was like, I should probably teach jujitsu. I'm a brown belt. So we just started doing no-gi, and all of a sudden, I just started getting like a few people that started really liking it, and they stopped doing kickboxing a little bit, and they wanted to do jiu-jitsu. Like a month later, the classes are growing and growing. I'm like, what the hell? So now we're getting regulars, like in my jiu-jitsu classes. We started like twice a week and 3 times a week. So I think we were doing jiu-jitsu for almost 6, 7 months, and I wanted to start a gi program. Everyone's like, no, we're not going to do gi. Who the heck's going to do gi? This is UFC gym. We're all MMA fighters here. You you MMA fighters, you're not supposed to train in the gi, which is such horseshit, by the way,
Yeah.
too. Um, because at many times all your world champions trained in the gi
Hmm.
up until their fights. But again, I don't know what today's generation, what they're watching or what they're thinking, but yeah, so that's how the jujitsu guys were. We were training the damn gi still. We would do all of that stuff. Um, so when I started the gi program there, everyone was talking like, okay, it's not going to work. And like the first class, we had like 7, 8, 9, 10 people or something in the gi. I was like, holy shit, people bought gis, they bought belts. Because I'm thinking promotions, I'm thinking future. Like the belt, yes, it goes around your waist, but that belt shows it's a degree. It's like a college degree, right? Because you're there forever. Like if you're not doing gi, I'm sorry, I don't buy the whole belt thing. So that's what jujitsu is. It's Brazilian Jiu Jitsu for a reason. You put in 10, 12 years, you're gonna know a lot of knowledge. You don't have to be a world champion. You
Right.
don't have to be any of that. You just have to know how to be a good teacher if that's what you want to do. And I started loving teaching and seeing my students compete from a UFC gym and beating people from legit schools. I'm like, maybe I do know what I'm talking about. And I didn't at the time compared to what I know now. I mean, and I'm going to say this in 3 years from now. But I grew to about 20, 30 people would come into my classes. I had a student be like, "Hey, I'll give you this much money. Open your school. I believe in you. Let's do it." And I had no money. We jumped, and that was it. Um, it sucked that I had to take the people away from that gym, but I still have most of them that came with me 4 years ago with me to this day.
Wow.
They're
Yeah,
still
man.
with me to this day. My OGs, I call them.
That's some dedication for sure, man. Um, and over the years, who are some of the folks that you've had the opportunities to train with? And the reason I ask that is because I remember being a brand new blue belt. Professor Uflacker gave me my blue belt. Uh, and I remember watching you guys, and it was kind of mesmerizing to see you guys just spar each other because you guys are preparing for fights and everything, man. You guys were killing each other. Who are some of the
Oh,
folks that you've had the liberty to train with, man, over the years?
oh man, to this day, I wish some of the MMA fighters would train the way we trained. You don't see that a lot anymore. You would see us. You saw us beat the living daylights out of each other.
Yeah.
Six 5 minute rounds. It didn't matter if you were pro or amateur. You're doing 6 5 minute rounds. So I got to train with Christian Uflacker, which was awful when he was training for fights. Um, the BBs, I've trained with a few of the BBs, Carson BB, back in the day, who was a decent pro fighter. Rob Menegaz, made it in the pro ranks, but he doesn't fight anymore. Gideon Ray, who is, man,
Remember Gideon.
he got me ready for my fights. Just amazing, very talented.
What makes the Ferro Academy different than other schools in the greater Chicago area, in your opinion?
If you give me 100%, I'm giving you 100%. So that's my job anyway, is to make you good at jujitsu, to make you happy. I just talked to the class today. I'm like, have think about it as I want you guys to love it as much. I wish I could get you guys to love it as much as I do because I'm obsessed with it. Obviously, that's not going to happen, but that is my goal. My goal is to make everyone know what to do on the streets, to keep my police officers safe on the streets and know what to do, keep the veterans safe mentally. Um, but I could only do it if you put in the work, But that's kind of how I'm different in the academy because I push, but it's good for competitors and it's good for. We have an 87-year-old man that comes to class twice a week.
Wow.
So yeah, it doesn't matter, you know. So that's what's different.
I
I don't sugarcoat stuff.
Yeah, I think a lot of that goes back to your upbringing as well. You lost your father at a very young age. Think about how many young folks are at your academy that you're leaving an impression upon, teaching them the things that you had to learn. You're by yourself, joining the military. You're teaching them. I'm sure you have a lot of teenagers that are showing up, and a lot of parents that are hobbyists as well. I think maybe some of the things that you do and the reasons why you run it the way that you do is sort of because of the way you were brought up and how you had to learn things on your own, right?
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, no, I want people to learn, and I want them to get something when they're there. They're supporting me. I got to support. I got to do my job. I got to work. You got to work hard.
Yeah. I really miss Chicago and having academies like yours and Uflackers. And I tell you what, that was the beginning of my uh, training was when I was there in Chicago. And since then, I really haven't experienced another academy similar to what Professor Uflacker ran. And I haven't experienced the same type of training family that he had there as well, with folks like you. So I at some point in time, man, I'd like to stop by and drop in and
Absolutely.
bring my gi. So um,
Anytime. I love it. I love when people come to visit and train. I love doing seminars. I just want people to learn. I want to teach. I want to keep getting better, and I have to get better to get you better. That's how I look at it.
everything everything is so exciting for you. And I remember, when I trained there in Chicago, it was a very formidable time for me specifically. And for you and your academy, what do you have coming over the horizon? What's in store for you, competition wise, or what's in store for your business?
I I'm trying to build the kids classes, which is doing a very good job. Um, my goal is to add more classes to maybe teach like an MMA class, just like striking once a week with jujitsu, because a lot of us don't know what to do when if we're stuck on our backs in a street scenario, how to block a punch type stuff. Um, I'm just trying to grow. I'm just trying to grow. Me, as far as competing, I think I'm going to do two more this year. I've been competing almost twice a month since January. I'm tired. I just love it. But I think I'm taking November, December off to try to look at some seminars. So I'll still be traveling. Hopefully, I got a seminar set in California actually for November, December. If they're in SoCal. So I'm working on the specifics yet. So I'll know more when that comes out. So I have one lined up so far. And then next year I wanna try to get on the Pan Ams. I want to get at the Nationals and the Worlds, and let's see what I could do um, against the big leagues. I mean, then same thing I did this year, but I'm going to add a few more big events in there, and I want some of my students to be on the podiums at these big events because I believe I could teach any of them to make it up there because I believe in my jujitsu and I believe in my teaching at this point because I nonstop study.
Even scheduling this interview, man, like, you had so much going on. I appreciate you being so flexible, and we're doing this at night, and I know
Uh,
you just got done teaching your classes, man. So you also mentioned too that you're planning on writing a book.
yes, so I've been wanting to do this for a while. I'm in the middle of. I'm just doing like I'm getting all my thoughts down. I'm going from my childhood to where I'm at now. Um, so that's something to look out probably in the next 6 months. Um, Something should be coming out soon. And I've had an interesting life, but
Yeah.
it's more of just helping people because I don't want good people to suffer. Like I suffered a lot, silence suffered, and I don't want people to silence suffer. I've been where I was living in basements in my car and stuff like that. So and to have a strong positive mindset, don't be weak minded. And like I said, I'm very brutally honest. If someone's being lazy, I'm going to tell them they're being lazy. And I'm like, if you don't do anything about it, life's not going to be easier. It really isn't. I believe in the hard work, and that's all I try to throw on to people. And don't use your mental health as an excuse. Like me using PTSD is, oh, I can't do that. I can't train. I can't do that. I have PTSD. No, you're just using it. Don't take
Right.
advantage of it. You use it to fuel you.
Right.
Yeah, and that's what I'm trying to tell people because I see a lot of the younger people. They don't understand it yet. I'm not saying they don't struggle, but at the same time, we came up in different times.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
And
you overcame a lot yourself. You had to figure it out on your own, and now you are sort of a father figure for a lot of the folks, the teens that train with you right now, who may have the same situation as what you had growing up. So that's tremendous in itself. Where do you think you'd be today if you didn't have MMA or Brazilian Jiu Jitsu in your life?
I don't know. I always say I don't think I'd be here. I don't know. I wasn't in a good place. I can't really imagine my life without it. So I don't think anything good
Yeah.
would be out of it. I'd probably just be working a dead end job and not be happy, but I couldn't do that.
Right.
I can't even see because I was in baseball in the beginning of my life, and then I just feel worthless if I don't do something. Um, yeah, they wouldn't. I couldn't not do it.
Right.
That's all I can say. So I don't know. I don't know where I'd be. Maybe I'd be a psychiatrist.
Man, it's sort of a hook in itself. I mean, I did a session this morning with some folks from work. We got on the mats and we rolled around, did some no-gi, and afterwards, man, I feel so much better. I mean, so much better. I can start my day, feel really strong, more awake, more alive, starting out my day like that. And the guys that I train with, and have a tremendous amount of respect for them. So I really wanted to underline your story and your background because of how important Brazilian Jiu Jitsu and mixed martial arts has been for me over the years when I was in my darkest hour, how it saved me from getting into that mental potential PTSD depression stage. It kept me out of there, and I've had friends for life that I've met on the mats, man. And with anyone out there, I know that you have started a YouTube channel and you're on some social media platforms, but anyone out there, any listeners who might be struggling to find themselves or would need some advice, what advice would you like to provide them that we didn't mention here on the show so far?
You just no matter what you go through, you got to go through it. Like there's always going to be light at the end of the tunnel. You could have a bad day, or you could have a bad week, you could have a bad month. But and you could bitch, you could complain. That's fine. I do it. Anxiety gets bad all the time, but you know what? Eventually, you're gonna understand why you're going through it, and you just have to do it. Like, don't say you're gonna do something. Just do it, and things fall into place. I guess the biggest thing to get out of it: trust yourself. Believe in yourself a little bit. You can be hard on yourself, but believe in yourself. You have to. You don't believe in yourself, who's gonna believe in yourself? No one's gonna believe in you. You have to believe in yourself. So that's something that people need to get. That's what I did. Why I started my YouTube to get awareness out for veterans, and now I do weekly videos for jujitsu. But I still, podcasts like this, I like putting up on my YouTube because it's a different change, and people need to hear this stuff. And if it helps one person out of 100, it helps one person.
Yep.
That's kind of see it.
Yeah. Well said. Well said. And speaking of which, if anyone out there is seeking to connect with you, what's the best way for them to find you? Like, what social media platforms are you on?
Instagram, I'm on mainly. It's Sickness81. My YouTube is Sickness Ferro, Ferro, and then Facebook, just my name, Anthony, Sickness Ferro on Facebook. But usually Instagram, and that's how I built my business. A lot of it is social media. That's how. It's not easy. I'm constantly on my phone, and then people are like, "Oh, I'm constantly posting stuff. I gotta shout my sponsors out because they help. You gotta help out everybody that helps you out." And I have so much help that I try to help out 50 people at night. So my day doesn't even I know I don't know what time it is. It's 11:36 here. I still have a lot of stuff I gotta do tonight. Yeah, a lot of stuff I gotta do. I gotta prepare videos. I gotta do ads. You gotta respond to emails. You gotta respond to texts. You got people. You gotta keep up. Social media is huge, and if used in a positive way. And I use that platform to get some of my stress out. When I get annoyed by something I see on the news too, to help get it out. But it's mainly for jujitsu, and awareness. Awareness is huge. People don't know certain things until you might read something someone has to say, and like facts. You got to understand facts, and that's a lot of people don't know facts anymore. It's just like hearsay.
Right.
So I believe in social media used as a good thing too.
Yeah, you are, man. You're killing it, and I highly appreciate talking to veterans like you who are out there overcoming the obstacles. No excuses. You're out there not just making it for yourself, but you're also bringing everyone else up too by having your academy and being a mentor for so many folks out there. So thank you for the time. I know it's extremely late for you, but thank you for the time and the flexibility for having this interview. I appreciate it, Professor Ferro. And then for everyone else out there, thank you for tuning in. As always, I want you to stay tuned, stay focused, and stay motivated. Warriors, fall out. You've been listening to the Morning Formation Podcast. I hope you found today's materials helpful and of value to your current situation. You can connect with me on Instagram at the_morning_formation_podcast, or you can connect with me via email at theformationpodcaster@gmail.com. Also, I would like to thank my partners at Act Now Education for their support. Authenticity, community, and trusted is what you can expect from all members of the Act Now Education team. You can link up with them today and learn about some new, free educational resources on their Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, or at their website, actnoweducation.com. Whether today's show took you back to a nostalgic time or helped you think about tomorrow, thank you for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you again. Stay safe and stay motivated. Warriors, fall out.